Hello and welcome to actually Bryant Fitness Systems. This video is going to be all about fake influencers and why there's so many people talking about nutrition, diet, lifestyle, and why you may be getting totally fucking confused. So please subscribe, please like, and please share this video. So the first thing is, I've just been watching James Smithy's video, who's a complete fraud, who's a complete fake in my opinion. How fad diets are fucking us all up. Now, an average bodybuilder will just think you need to just eat carbs, high amounts of protein and small amounts of fat. That's an average bodybuilder with little or no knowledge about nutrition. Now, I've studied with the Czech Institute in San Diego, California, and to get my level 5 masters took over 6 years. So it's not something where you could do an online course, then you get a certificate, then you could start selling it. You get vetted by Paul himself, and he won't pass anyone until he thinks you're completely ready, which I think is a brilliant system to make sure there's no year-hard cowboys out there like the Liver King and like James Smith. Now, the reason why I've got a pet hate against James Smith is that one thing he said in one of his videos is that if people make a comment on his video, he never blocks them and never listens to what they've said. So I've made a few comments, which things I didn't agree with, and I got blocked. So he lied about that. Then he said in his book, he was talking about vitamin D, but he didn't mention how important vitamin D and vitamin K is together, in which for your body, and to have fat on the time that you have vitamin D, in which for your body to uptake that vitamin. And obviously you can get it from the sun as well. So he didn't put that in his book. And then when you read the book, it's all over the place. So it's not like chapter to chapter. You'll see that it's all over the place. It's quite hard to read, or I found it quite hard to read. And the first book ever that I've ever read that was full of swear words. Now, to me, when somebody swears in a book, when that's going out to the general public, you're really insulting the reader. Does that make sense? If you haven't got the vocabulary or the mental knowledge in which to put words in place of swear words. Does that make sense? And I think this is why the younger population seem to really like his stuff at the moment. But obviously he's a fad. He'll be there for a little while and then he'll disappear, and then there'll be another person talking absolute bollocks that everybody will jump on. Does that make sense? Not me though. So after watching the video, he mentioned about the documentary on Netflix about eating just plant food. Now, I found clinically over 25 years, any client that's come to me that is a vegan or a vegetarian, that is the root cause of their pain. When we change their diet and find out what their metabolic type is, then their bodies start to adapt, start to get stronger, start to get fitter and healthier. And if you look at, I think it's a Swedish population, in Sweden, Holland, Denmark, and some parts of Japan, they have the highest amount of meat in their diet, and they have the longest living people. So they live to beyond 83. So 83 is norm. You've done well. But to get over 83, you're doing brilliant. If you're in good health and you're not in aches and pains and on a machine or got a wheelchair. Does that make sense? So when he was saying about how diets are fucking people up. Now, he's fucking people up massively because he just believes in calorie counting or calorie deficit or calorie restriction. Now, I don't believe in that at all. I've never ever restricted any of my clients' nutrition. All I've done is taken out poisonous foods or foods that cause inflammation in the body, like white dairy, white flour. Alcohol is now, Herberman, the scientist, is now saying, and a couple of other scientists on YouTube are now saying, that alcohol is so detrimental to the brain that you should never drink it. And if it was invented today, it will be totally banned. But obviously the government make huge amounts of money from it, and lots of people are hugely addicted to it. Does that make sense? So seeing James with a thing on his knee, I'm quite happy about that, because I know that his knowledge is very, very low. And he's just putting stuff out there because he's got a good marketing company behind him. Now, anybody can spin a load of crap with good PR. If we look at Bill Gates, injecting people in Africa with a needle when he didn't even have a doctor's qualification. Does that make sense? And the same with the science. Unless the science is backed up by, 100 to 1,000 people that they've done the case study on, then you can take that case study as, yes, that's a real study, it's working because it's worked on 100 people. But a lot of the drug companies and the companies that are trying to sell stuff to me and you will do a study on 10 people. That's not realistic, is it? Does that make sense? The same as they've now found, which I think was quite interesting, that with exercise, it's the drug of choice, which Paul Chek was talking about over 23 years ago. And then I see Herberman and other scientists and other trainers trying to regurgitate Paul's stuff, which annoys me a little bit, but obviously it's getting the word out there, so that's great. So they were saying that antidepressants, if you would take a placebo pill and the SRI in which to get you out of depression, which it never does, that the placebo effect with exercise, or just using exercise alone, was a much stronger way of reversing depression. Okay, and I know probably 7 people that are on antidepressant medication and said, I'm going to come off it. They haven't come off of it. They won't come off of it because they're now addicted. And this is what the head honchos, Monsanto or different drug companies in America and in the UK, they want to get you addicted, so they keep making money off the government. Does that make sense? So it's highly important to really, when a trainer or an influencer is putting information out there, you need to do your own research before you go, yeah, that's correct. Does that make sense? So I've got a friend of mine, and we've known each other for years and years, and we had a debate about calorific restriction. And I said to him, if calorie restriction was so successful, Weight Watchers wouldn't be so successful. Does that make sense? Because 100% of the people that do calorie restrictive diets go back to the normal way of eating. And when they go back to the normal way of eating, if they lost 10 pounds, they gain 20 pounds back. Because that's how the body repays you. Does that make sense? So I've not met anybody yet that's managed to be successful all their life of doing calorie restriction. Now, I believe in fasting and intermittent fasting because that can boost your growth hormone by 2,000% in the science. And I do it on a regular basis, and I really like doing it. I like the challenge and how the body feels. So that's one way that you can say that that's calorie restriction, okay? But it isn't, because you're not doing it forever. You're only doing it for 1 or 2 days, unless you want to do 14 days. And then you're going back to your normal way of eating. Does that make sense? And my argument is, if calorie restrictive diets were so successful, why don't doctors say to their patients that are obese, you just need to eat less, if it's that simple? Because it's not that simple. Everybody needs different amounts of carbohydrates to fats to proteins to vitamins and minerals, depending on your age, depending on your waist size, shoulder size, and how big your body is as well. So it's not as simple as just restrict your calories and exercise like a fucking nutter, and then you're going to lose weight. Now, I've had lots of clients come to me in adrenal stress or don't understand why they can't focus on their job, or they keep gaining fat and they're training 6 days a week. It's because you're overtraining, Muppet. But unfortunately, there's so much misinformation in the fitness industry because it's not regulated and controlled, okay? So James Smith has done 3 or 4 books, which is great. I've done 3 or 4 3 books, and which is awesome. But when you read the books, it's really bad information. It's not researched information neither. Does that make sense? I try and use practical stuff as much as I can. Working with the Czech Institute, Paul is a very, very practical person, and he'll dip into science to prove a point and stuff like that, which is great. But if you look at Paul's body, age, I think he's 63, 64 now. Sorry, Paul, if I got it wrong. Still looks fucking amazing. Still drinking his body weight in ounces of water. Still hopefully getting to bed on time and living his own practice. Does that make sense? And this is what annoys me about the Liver King, dodgy eye, another injury. You know, because he was messing with his hormonal system and not doing it naturally in the ego of, I've got a mental disorder of bigorexia, so I need to take all these drugs to look phenomenal so I can sell more supplements to the people that are naive and the people that are not done full research. And this is the same with Dorian Yates. So Dorian Yates was like Mr. Olympia 6 years in a row, which obviously he had a contract for 6 years. And now you see him, he's Mr. Pee Wee Herman. And the reason why he's Pee Wee Herman is because he damaged his hormonal system from taking huge amounts of drugs. And this is what really annoys me, is that you'll see this great physique and they're looking phenomenal. Then 6 years on, they're looking shit. Okay? Whereas you look at Paul back 20 years ago, he's still the same. He still looks fucking amazing. The same with me. I put on a little bit of body fat because I wanted to get bigger arms and gain a little bit more mass, but now I'm going to lean up and cut right down to about 14 stone. I don't be any lighter than that. But can you see my point? So you got Herberman, a female scientist, and another scientist, all putting their stuff out there, which is a bit too much for people, in my opinion. Because all people want to know, the clients that come to see me, Scott, I want to get out of pain, I want to get stronger, and I want to play with my kids. Or I'm a golfer, I want to get my handicap down and I want to increase my drive. Or I'm a tennis player, I've got a knee injury or a back injury, I just want to get back to playing my sport. Or I'm a skier and I just want to go down the piste without falling over and breaking my neck. Does that make sense? So I would say probably 90.9% of trainers will never work with elite athletes, especially in England, because elite athletes have got no fucking money. And you want to earn money in which to pay your bills. Does that make sense? And I know of a trainer that was working with athletes, which I was all impressed with, but they weren't paying him. How can you work with an athlete and not get paid? Just to have their name? Completely stupid, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. So James Smith, I don't like him whatsoever. I've read his book. It was absolutely crap. I didn't enjoy all the swearing in it. I was looking for good knowledge, good understanding. He said the endomorph, ectomorph and mesomorph doesn't work. Of course it fucking works. When you see a client and they've got a wide shoulders and a small waist, you can get them to gain muscle, and strength training will be really good for them. If they're long and lean and tall, they might not want to do the strength and conditioning training. They'd be more suited to doing cardiovascular endurance training. But they may want to do the weightlifting, like Luther who I met back in the 90s, you know. So really important is that when you look at these fake influencers, look at their physiques and go, is it really obtainable for me to get that physique? Because a lot of them are on drugs, you know, 4 weeks off for 2 weeks, back on again, and then they've got this gargantuan size, but it's only because of the drugs. So as soon as they stop, their strength goes down, the muscle mass goes down, and that's why they look like Dorian Yates, or that's why they look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or that's why they look like Luther or that's why they look like Lee Priest. Do you see my point? They can't take the drugs anymore because it's damaged their body, and that's why they lose all their size. Does that make sense? Whereas myself and Paul Check and other guys that train naturally and know what to do always look good, always maintain their size, because we didn't cheat on our hormonal system. Does that make sense? If you look at Elliot Hulse, 1 minute he was huge, next minute he was small, then he was big again, now he's on HRT, now he's off HRT. You know, totally confusing to their audience. Does that make sense? So with fake influencers, look at their educational level. That's what's really important. He said, James Smith, oh, I didn't finish my degree. Now, if you didn't finish your degree, that means half of it you've only learned. And this is the same with a lot of Czech practitioners out there. Oh, I'm a level 2 Czech practitioner. Or I'm not even a Czech practitioner, but I'm going to call myself one because it looks good and I think I'm going to get clients. which is completely, in my opinion, Neanderthal thinking. And it makes you look even worse. Because let's say the client that's been working with a level 5 like myself goes to see somebody because they're cheaper, that doesn't have the level 5 knowledge that takes 6 years. They will soon realise that and realise that you're a fake. Does that make sense? So the way I look at it, if I'm going to give anyone credibility, I need to look at where they've studied, who they've studied with, how much have they been doing the program themselves. So like, what's his name? This guy, bullshit. Smarter But Not Harder by Dave Asprey, recommended his book the other day. Can't find the bit that I want to read in there about how you can get your VO2 max increased by only training 15 minutes a week, 5 minutes a day on doing VO2 max training. Now, normally it's an hour a day, 5 days a week. Does that make sense? So I need to read the book a bit more thoroughly because maybe I've missed it. But if you look at Dave Asprey, he was a fat guy, now a skinny guy, now thinks he knows everything. Does that make sense? So if he'd been training for 20 years and got that success that way, then I would say that that's preferable and a great person to learn from. Now, Paul's been in the industry for over 30 years now, I think. And I've seen proof and evidence of his triathlete that he did, that he was a boxer, that he was a motocross rider. Everything he says in his videos, a lot of people might think, oh, that's a bit BS in it. He's done too much. But I've seen it all, 100% proof. It's all real. Whereas when I look at James Smith's videos, he keeps caning everything. But that's only getting in views. Does that make sense? And because I think he's 6 years into the industry now, which is great. So he has got a sort of like masters, because you've got to do 10,000 hours to become a master at your job or what you do. But for him to be still selling calorie counting, James, I would have thought you would have improved your knowledge and done a nutritional course to understand that the body is not that simple. I wish it was, but it just isn't. And that's why there's a percentage of fat people in the gym and a percentage of muscle people and a percentage of skinny people. Does that make sense? And this could be because of their program design. It could be because of their trainers are crap. And the reason why the bigger percentage of trainers these days, unless they're, in my opinion, Czech practitioner qualified level 5 or Charles Parlequin level 5 qualified, then you know they've gone through a barrage of assessments, a barrage of books they've got to read in which to get their knowledge up to date, in which to help the client get what they want from what they're paying. Does that make sense? So James Smith's video that I just watched, he's fucking up the industry by talking about calorie counting. Why is he not updating his knowledge? Because he's in his ego and he thinks he knows it all. But when you read his books, you realise he knows fuck all. Does that make sense? And the same with the Liver King, Steroid Monkey. Now he's in a world of pain, which is his own fault. And lying in the first place. If he would have been totally honest with people, people would have respected him even more and probably would have bought more of his supplements that he's trying to sell. Does that make sense? James Smith has been honest about taking steroids. He's probably still taking them. Because what happens, what many people don't understand, like I was explaining to a family member of mine the other day, is that when you start on the road of taking testosterone, your natural levels shut down. Then you have to try and boost them to get them back again. But the more that you're trying to boost them, the more that you're causing a yo-yo system in the hormonal system. Then eventually it breaks and then you can't recover. So I heard about a bodybuilding guy training 2 hours a day. Now I train 1 hour a day, 1 hour 4 times a week. And that's really intense, really fucking intense, really heavy and really going for it. And I'm absolutely fucked at the end. So I know 100% doing 2 hours of training, by the time you get to the end of the first hour, you ain't got anything left. So you're either wanking in the toilet or you're talking to your buddies and not really getting a full functional proper workout in which to gain some size. And then if you look at most of the guys with the gargantuan amount of muscle, they're really, really weak. So if you're weak and you're on a huge amounts of gear, that's showing that you're getting the growth of the muscle, but your testosterone is staying plateaued. Does that make sense? So you're not as strong as you could be because you're cheating on a natural system that if you lift heavy, eat steak, eat eggs, take some creatine, you can still gain size and get stronger. Yes, it's slower, 7 pounds a year. But 7 pounds a year over 5 years is a lot of muscle on the body. Does that make sense? So you've got Dorian Yates, you've got Frank Zane, who's now ill as well. So there's lots of these bodybuilders that I was looking up to when I was younger and naive. Whereas now I just look at them and I just think, yeah, great physique, but you're dead now. Great physique, but, you know, you've got heart issues. Or great physique, you've had your leg cut off like Flex Wheeler. Is it really worth risking all of that? I don't think it is, especially when it comes to your health. So we all know that today we're in a world of, that's not in the science. Show me the scientific proof. I'm the fucking proof. Does that make sense? And this is what I say to my clients. I say, don't get baffed down with the Whoop thing or the other ring thing they're wearing. I don't do any of that. And I'm still stronger than my clients. Does that make sense? The thing that's really, really important is the consistency of your training 4 days a week for a year. You will be stronger 70% by the end of the year than what you was at the beginning of the year. 70%, that's huge. But you could take gear and be 80% stronger. Then when you come off of it, you'll be 10% stronger. And then you're doing this yo-yoing with your body all the time. And that's what causes the diseases and the other problems. Does that make sense? And I've met other bodybuilders that were really big guys and they're really fat now. And I go, you're still training? No. Well, why? I just don't have the energy. And when I was training on gear, it really gave me a push. It really, you know, turned me on and got me going. And I went, well, why can't you just do that naturally? Like I do. I call myself a pussy when I'm in the gym. I'm screaming at myself a bit like, what's the black guy's name? I can't think of his name. You know, the black guy, the Mr. Olympia, he talks to himself. And I believe that's really important, especially as you age, because you're not young anymore. You're not got, you know, 20-year-old testosterone flowing around in your blood. So you need to have tricks to push yourself. And because I'm in the fitness industry, this is what I've been doing for 25 years, and I don't want to stop, I know that I have to train and keep training, and that keeps me motivated. Does that make sense? So don't take any notice of the fitness influencers that have got a six-pack or have done a big photo shoot where they're looking ripped, but when you see them on the street, they're all fat and bloated and looking a mess. So really be careful who you listen to and what you read. And what I would say about the Czech Institute, it standard its testing time, qualified in 2013, but started it or heard about Paul in 2003, been using his techniques ever since. I've never had a client not get into shape. I've never had a client that doesn't get out of pain. The only time they may not improve as fast as they want to, because they have a self-sabotaging pattern and they just won't address the program fully. Does that make sense? So I hope you've enjoyed this video about fake influencers like Dorian Yates, like James Smith, Lou Ferrigno, Arnold. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger said a while ago, oh, he eats like a vegan, doesn't eat meat. What a load of fucking bullshit. He's just lying because he's part of the government. He's part of the system. Does that make sense? He was eating fucking 24 eggs a day and popping Dynabold like Smarties when Wag Bennett told me, who was Arnold's trainer in the early 70s and 80s. And I never forget, I said to Wag, so what was unique about Arnold? And he said, I went up to Arnold and I said, where do you think you're going to be in 6 years' time? And Arnold said, everyone will know my name and I'll be one of the richest men in America. And he done it. So it shows that when you've got great self-belief and you're self-driven, you can achieve amazing things. And you don't need steroids. You don't need a fake influencer. You just need to believe in yourself and get a coach that's going to teach you how to believe in yourself. So please check on my website if you want a coach that's going to believe in you and help you to achieve your ultimate goal. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.